Hello everyone, thank you so much for being here. My name is Sajjad and I'm the English teacher. And in today's lesson, we're going to focus on prepositions, the rules, and some practices and some examples regarding that grammar. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so as you can see here, we have Mastering English Prepositions, the Architecture of Connection. Now let's get to the next slide that we have, and let's first introduce prepositions and what they do and what they are. To show direction, sometimes we use them to refer to time and space, of course. They are necessary because they help us connect the words in the sentence. If we look at the unified triangle of time and space, we can definitely see that these three main prepositions, meaning in, on, and at, actually can be used both in regards to describing time and space. So first let's focus on time and then we will talk about space. When we say broadest points or periods, we're talking about a long period. And we use the word in to refer to them. For example, in July, in September, in August. When we try to talk about years, we say in 2005, in 1992, in 2012. And of course with seasons, in summer, in spring, in winter, and so forth and so on. Specific days and dates also, of course, exist, and we use the preposition on to refer to them. On March 1st, if I wanted to give you an example, whenever you want to refer to your birthday, you can say, I was born on January 2nd, I was born on August 15th, and some other examples. Also, when we refer to days of the week, on Friday, on Saturdays, or on Mondays. For example, on Mondays, I wake up at 8 a.m. in the morning. And when we want to refer to precise moments, we use the preposition at. For example, at 5 p.m., at 5 a.m. in the morning, at midnight, at noon, or at midday, of course. And we use them because they are very precise. Now, the same rules apply in space, so we use the word in for enclosed or bounded spaces. For example, in the kitchen, in Paris, in a box, or in a park, even. Remember, the rule is when you have a border. If you can draw a border for the place that you're trying to describe or talk about, you can use the word in. However, with the word on, it refers or it only depends on the surfaces. So for example, we have on the table or on the wall. It doesn't matter if that surface is horizontal or vertical. What matters is that something is attached on the surface of something else. For example, I have a shield on my mobile phone screen. Good. And if we want to talk about the precise points or addresses, we use the word at. For example, I'm at the door, I'm at 5 Main Street, I'm at university, I'm at the park even. We say I'm at the park when we are at the entrance, not inside it, right? So we're simply talking about a very, very specific place or address. Now let's talk about motion and transport and vectors. So the rule with transport diagnostic is if you want to decide if you have to use the word on or in for vehicles, cars, buses, ships, the question that you have to ask yourself is, if the answer is yes, then you should use the word or preposition on. For example, on a bus, on a plane, on a train, on a minibus, on a minivan, probably because you are able to stand up and walk inside it. However, you should use the word in, for example, in a car or in a taxi. So the rule doesn't apply for bikes and motorbikes or motorcycles. In that case, you must use the word on because you're on the surface of that vehicle. Now, with vectors of direction, You move from one point to another point, and you must use the preposition to. However, if you want to talk about the fact that you walk inside a closed space, you can say, I walked into the building. I walked into the park, because that place has a border and you know the border lines. It doesn't matter if it has a roof, if it has a ceiling or not. What matters if it is bounded. Then we have some directions. For example, I looked towards the window. This is just showing the direction of my gaze. It's not talking about any motion. However, we have the word walk out of the room when you actually exit a place. Now, finally, down below here, we have swim across the river. Maybe this image is not very good to represent the word across, but just know when you're walking or when you're moving from one side to the other side of somewhere, you can use the word across. So for example, walking across the river means, or swimming across the river means to swim from one side of it to the other side. The best example I could say to you is just to look outside the window of your building. What you see in front of the building or in front of your window is across from your building or is across from your window. And that's the best example possible. Now, let's talk about timelines, duration, and deadlines. So we have two prepositions here. So we use the word since and for both, just to know. We never or almost never use the word since or for to refer to time or duration when we use other grammar rules. For example, simple present or future tense or simple past tense. As you can see, we have the origin point with since. So that is the starting point of an action and its connection to the present time. So for example, I have been teaching English since 2012, or I have been creating music since I was 16. That is the starting point of my action. However, when I want to talk about the duration or the total duration, I use the preposition for. For example, I've been teaching English for 13 years now, and I've been working on this video for almost, 10 minutes probably, maximum. Now, let's look at the other two prepositions that we have, and those are until and by. We use the word until and by to connect the present time to the future. We may use the word until in the past as well, but mostly we use it to connect the present to the future because it's a continuous action. For example, the shop is open until 8 p.m. We usually use it on a daily basis and we want to say, okay, how long it takes for that shop to close. What about the past? Yeah, I had never, this is with past perfect, by the way. I had never visited Milan until I was 16. So I can use the word until in the past as well, but that shows the time when that action was done. We mean that the action that we refer to, and we use the preposition by, for, definitely ends or finishes by the time we refer to. So for example, send the report by Friday. When we say by Friday, we mean any day before Friday. Maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday, maybe Tuesday. What matters is that the action will be done before that deadline. We will definitely discuss the grammar later on when we discuss perfect tense and perfect register. However, in this case, this is how it works. Now let's take a look at some examples and to look at the checkpoints, right? The time and space and motion, of course. So the CEO arrives in Paris on Tuesday at 9 a.m. In Paris, because Paris is a city and it has border lines. on Tuesday because it's a specific day, and at 9 a.m. because it's a precise moment. Number 2, we have been working on this project since 2020. That is for 3 years. Since 2020 because 2020 is the origin of that time or the starting point of that action. And that is for 3 years. Use for because we are referring to the duration. In this case, we use the word by because that's a hard deadline. So before tomorrow arrives, I will have finished that audit. So wait until I call you. And we use until here because we want to show the soft deadline for you waiting. Number 4, he got in the taxi, but she got on the train. Again, we mentioned, if you cannot stand up in a vehicle and walk around it, you should use the preposition in the taxi, in the car, but she got on the train. On the train, you can stand up and you can walk around. So we use the preposition on. Number 5, she walked into the room and sat in the corner. We use the word into because it's a closed space and you want to show motion into that space. And she sat in the corner. We use the word in because a corner is also bordered or bounded. Now it is time to look at fixed combinations and idiomatic minefields. Some fixed combinations that we have, for example, we say listen to or wait for, depend on or belong to. These prepositions never change and they are fixed. You must definitely use a dictionary to figure out the rules and laws that apply to any verb. So if we have listen, we have listen to. If you use the word listen on, that doesn't make any sense. The second fixed combination that we have is an adjective plus a preposition. For example, you are either good or bad at something. For example, I am good at making promises. I am bad at breaking promises. I am good at mathematics. I am good at drawing. Or I am bad at cooking, which I'm not, by the way. Now, to be interested in something or to be responsible for something, these things never change and these are fixed as well. I suggest you to use AI or any language model just to make sure if certain prepositions are possible for you to use with certain adjectives. For example, you may have lack of sugar in your blood system, or you may not have a reason for treating other people badly, or we have been experiencing a decrease in the price of gas lately. We also have a translation trap. Make sure you never translate directly from your own native language into English when trying to translate prepositions, because they never work well. What you need to do is to learn the rules and laws of prepositions and just to learn how they work, because they might not be the same in other languages, including Persian language, Turkish language, Polish language, or any other language. Let's try to see some examples. We have the wrong word, which is married with someone, which is grammatically wrong, and the right version is to be married to someone. Or you cannot say different than or different of. You must say different from. For example, I am different from my sister when it comes to spending money. Or countries are different from each other. Students are different from each other. There is also a void. A void is when you should not use a preposition. These are also very important for you to learn. In the first section, as you can see, we have the redundancy trap, where you have transitive verbs. A transitive verb is when that verb can accept a direct object. How can you know if a verb is transitive or not? You should definitely ask yourself a few questions, which we will talk about directly when we discuss transitive verbs. But you can also check a dictionary to see if any verb has a transitive version. Sometimes verbs can mean different things, and each meaning can be either transitive or intransitive. For example, we don't say discuss about the project. We must say discuss the project. Order is another transitive verb, and you should just say order a pizza. And enter into the hall, we generally don't say that. You just say enter the hall, because the word enter is also transitive and it doesn't need a preposition. There is only one exception. Enter into is for abstract agreements. Generally speaking, you enter into an agreement with somebody. You can learn about all these rules using a dictionary. I don't want to mention it all over again. Make sure you always check a dictionary to learn about the rules of a preposition with certain verbs. In the second section, we talk about the rule of zero, where we have 5 fixed exceptions. For example, the first exception with movement is home. We never say go to home. We must say go home. This is a fixed exception, and the rule simply applies there. Well, I have some abstract ideas of why we don't say go to home, but let's not dwell on it, because probably there will be some people who say you're wrong. We never use in or on with next, last, this, or tomorrow. For example, we never say on next Friday, on last Friday, or on this Friday. We simply say this Friday, next Friday, last Friday, and of course tomorrow. With presents, we don't attend to the class, we simply attend the class. Attend to simply means to care for something or to take care of something, not to be in that place. Number 4, which is about space, enter in the room. We said we don't say enter in or into, simply enter the room. And finally, an action, I lack confidence. We don't say I lack of confidence. Remember, we use lack of only when we use it with a noun. Lack of sugar, lack of energy, lack of battery. Here we are at the second checkpoint to look at some examples. We need to discuss the budget for next year, not discuss about. She's very good at coding and is married to a software engineer. I want to enter the building and attend the meeting. Our design is different from yours, but we lack resources. I give you some time just to look at these examples. You can even take a screenshot, and you can also write some examples in the comments section to practice more. Here are some business phrases for people who want to learn business English. We have casual inputs and we have formal inputs. What we have in the casual inputs is not wrong. However, it would be much better if you could use the formal outputs instead. For example, when we say about the head count, it is better to say in terms of head count or with regard to budget. And we use these formal outputs when we want to frame a topic. Instead of saying I'm speaking for, it is better to say on behalf of the team, and it signals representation. Following the rules basically is correct. However, as a formal output, it's better to say in accordance with the policy or in accordance to a law. And this links an action to a specific requirement. We also have the word also, but the more formal output would be in addition to the report, and it signals addition. Here we have a key rule as well. The final particle of, to, or with must remain present. Never drop it. For example, not in view the rising costs, in view of the rising costs, or in terms of the headcount, or with regard to the budget. The of or to is a part of that prepositional phrase, so they should never be dropped. you must also pay attention and try to learn these combinations together. So don't learn in accordance. Try to learn in accordance with, in accordance to. Don't try to learn on behalf separately. Try to learn on behalf of altogether so you never forget them. We have separable phrasal verbs and inseparable phrasal verbs. But what are phrasal verbs? Any verb plus a particle, either an adverb or a preposition, is called a phrasal verb. The combination creates a new unpredictable meaning. When we say unpredictable, we mean that there is no rule on what preposition makes what meaning. You just have to learn them using a dictionary or just listening and learning them by yourself. If we talk about separable verbs, the object can go after or in the middle. What do we mean by the object? For example, as you can see in the example, we have pick it up. The word it in this case is the object. However, we have one specific rule of pronouns. If the object is a pronoun, for example, it, him, them, me, or her, for example, it must split the verb, meaning you cannot put it after the separable verb. And what do we mean by a separable verb? It means that you can actually separate the main verb and the particle, the adverb or the preposition, from each other and put anything in between. For instance, I can say turn off the TV or turn the TV off. This is a separable verb. However, we have inseparable verbs as well, where the verb and the particle can never separate from each other. The object must always follow the entire phrase. For example, we say get over it. We don't say get it over. You can actually say get it over with, but that's a whole different meaning. We also have a golden rule. For example, look forward to or put up with. And these three-word phrasal verbs are always inseparable. Let's take a look at the positioning, the formal versus informal debate. There is a myth, which is not true, that says never end a sentence with a preposition. This is not true actually. You can always use prepositions at the end of your sentence without adding any other words. Let's take a look at the informal or natural standard English. Usually we place the preposition at the end, which is perfect and natural in speech and most writing. For example, who are you waiting for? Or this is the project I told you about. There is a mistake that a lot of students make here. For example, they say, this is the project I told you about it. You don't need to add an extra pronoun after the preposition to complete your sentence. You just finish the sentence with the preposition. However, in a formal, fronting, academic, or legal framework or environment, placing the preposition before the relative pronoun is highly formal and can sound stilted. For whom are you waiting? Or this is the project about which I told you. This simply sounds more formal and it sounds more academic. However, using the prepositions in the informal or natural English way is also totally accepted. We explained a lot of things. Let's try to fix the phrasal verbs that we have here. We simply said that a three-word phrasal verb is inseparable. So we should say, come up with a new plan. Please turn on it. We also mentioned that if you have a pronoun, you must split the separable verb. So you should say, turn it on. Now, let's look at the business translation. Speaking for the committee, we are changing things following the new rules. This is correct. However, there is a better business version. On behalf of the committee, we are proceeding in accordance with the new rules. Let's look at the preposition wayfinding systems. So the first wayfinding or learning about how to use a preposition is the logical architecture. Use spatial or temporal logic when it exists. Remember the at, on, in triangle that we discussed at the beginning of the session, transport flowcharts that we discussed, and directional vectors. The second one is structural integrity. Memorize the fixed joints, dependent pairs, and idioms. They never change. And know when to use the void or zero preposition rules. We also talked about it. And finally, we have the advanced polishing. Adapt your phrasing for the audience. Phrasal verb splitting, complex business phrases, and formal positioning. Let's master the build and the final diagnostic. The only thing that I have to mention here is that we have a few problems here because this slide was generated by AI. But let's take a look at the examples. I've been working on this since Monday, and I will finish by noon. Very right, very correct. We cannot use the word since in the second part, and we cannot use the word by in the first part, simply because we are using present perfect continuous. And don't forget, we said and when we mentioned that we used both prepositions since and by with present perfect or present perfect continuous. She got through the car and drove through the tunnel. Well, here we should say she got in the car and drove through the tunnel. We need to discuss about the fact that this is different from our original plan. We have a problem here as well. We simply said that we cannot use the word about with the verb discuss because the word discuss is simply transitive and it cannot accept a preposition. You can have a discussion about a topic, but you don't discuss about it. You discuss something. Number 4, in terms of budget, we lack capital. You don't need to add anything. That's why we choose the word nothing here. And finally, the report is wrong. Please look into it. We don't say look it into. Why? Because look into is inseparable, so we are not allowed to use the pronoun it in between. And right now, what matters is that you're no longer guessing what preposition you should use. You're architecturing sentences. Thank you so much for joining this lesson. This is the end of today's lesson. If you have any more questions or if you want to learn more about the rules and laws and if you want to practice them, make sure you put a comment in the comment section or check my website on the bio of my YouTube channel. I wish you the best and I hope to see you soon again.